welcome to the newest episode of the Honey Pot Podcast. I'm your host, Carmen Hendricks, and I took the lid off the pot today for a wonderful guest, Mr. Patrick Burton. Now, before we get started, I want to make sure all of our listeners remember to subscribe to our podcast so that you'll receive all notifications for everything Honey Pot. We're now available on iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube, as well as Stitcher, Google Play, and iHeartRadio. Search for Honey Pot Podcast. Here's TeKenya Johnson from My Marriage is My Brand with your sweet Honey Pot weekly marriage tip.
So there's this quote that I really love, and it says, "I have learned not to worry about love, but to honor its coming with all my heart," and that's by Alice Walker. On this week, we will be talking about a call to honor God in the marriage. This reminds me of how Christ and the roles and the duties of the husband and wife, and how forgiveness plays an intricate part in the marriage relationship. In this discussion, factors often affect oneness in the marriage covenant. Oneness, it's about a call to a marriage relationship that obeys what God commands in the marriage of covenant. And it's to discover what God wants you to know about yourself and about your spouse and his plans for that marriage. And there is no fruit in living our own selfish ways. There's no fruit in that. So keeping the marriage covenant together according to God's plan, God's design, is the utmost importance. What are some of our responsibilities in marriage? So are you kind? Are you compassionate? Are you helpful? Are you supportive? Or are you that spouse that constantly wants to be in control of how your spouse is and how your spouse reacts? Oftentimes when couples come to me, they ask, or they want to tell you everything that spouse is doing to them. But I often hand them a mirror and I say, look into that mirror. Do you want to be that spouse that always has something negative to say about your spouse? Why don't you look inside the mirror and ask yourself, are you keeping your vows and agreements that were made in that covenant? This is your week tip. Honor your spouse in the marriage covenant.
Now, let me go ahead and introduce today's guest. Patrick Burton is the self-published author of 2 books, Mrs. Lindsay and Father Figure, Healing Child Abandonment. These books are available at all major book retailers. He has also written a screenplay for an independent filmmaker, and he will publish his 3rd book entitled Why We Sleep with Married Men, the Interview, this year. You can listen to him speak on Grown Folks Conversation twice a month on 95.1 The Beat Meridian at 4 p.m. He was born in Raleigh, North Carolina, and raised in Enterprise, Alabama. Currently, he resides in North Carolina with his beautiful family. Welcome to the pot, Patrick. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing today?
Doing wonderful. We're so happy to have you here today in the pot. Is there anything else that you'd like to tell our listeners and viewers about yourself?
Well, I'm just a guy who likes to write about things that I see in the world that are less spoken about. So I like to be the platform for people to be able to speak through me and have a voice is what I like to write about. So I'm just a guy who I feel like I have a gift and I try to use it and not waste it.
Now, when you say things that people don't normally write about, give us some ideas of what you're talking about. What are some of your topics that you like to touch on?
So absolutely. So of course I talked about, I wrote about father figure, healing child abandonment. And there's a lot of grown-ups that I have spoken with, young men or older men in their 40s and 50s, that because of this machoism that we have as men, we don't talk about our abandonment issues. So I wanted to, with that book, I wanted to open that up and have a voice for men who are dealing with abandonment issues. They often take those issues into their relationships, and it can a lot of times be the downfall of the relationship, and they don't even know the catalyst of it.
We as authors always use things that have happened to us in our lives, things that have happened to people around us. And then, of course, we pull from current events. Is that something that you do? Do you pull from current events often? And if so, which of the books are the most heavily influenced by those events?
I would say all of my books, everything is influential by what happens around us, like you said, as authors. So things that happen in my household, a part of father figure was me. I have stepchildren, so watching my stepchildren come in and out of the home with the disappointment on their face with their biological parents. Mrs. Lindsay was a direct result of me going through my own personal divorce and just kind of talking that out from the other side. I wanted to kind of speak on the woman's perspective and not ridicule the woman, so to speak, but give a person an understanding of when things are not met, whether it be emotionally, physically, financially. People always have some type of epiphany, whether it's a hidden epiphany or whether it's an outward spoken epiphany. People have that, and then they make decisions accordingly.
You have the book coming out, Why We Sleep with Married Men, the interview. Tell us about that book. How did you come up with that concept?
Absolutely. So quite candidly, being in that situation, being a married man in my first marriage, and women being a recipient of a woman sleeping with a married man, or being a married man that a woman has slept with. Let me be very candid, because the audience needs candor. You get the reasons. You see the behind the scenes of when a woman is possibly being ignored emotionally. And a lot of people be like, girl, just go to church and pray about it. But when these things are up in front in your face, a lot of times they're not go to church and pray about it situations. Action items have to be accompanied by the emotions that are pushing them to do whatever. But the book in itself is more about, before you go out and judge someone in their situation, when you walk around snapping your fingers like, ooh, I know she didn't, or I know they didn't, you know what I mean? Understand the situation, because I think if we better understand the situations, then we can prevent those things from happening, being very real and not hiding behind. And please don't take this out of context. I don't have anything against church, but not trying to hide behind the old spiritual, what I call tradition of just going to church and praying in a way, because those things don't go away when you come back out of that church.
Oftentimes we have a lot of people who find themselves in situations where they have in the past said, I would never do that. And then they end up in those situations. So is that why you decided to write this book?
Absolutely. So when you say that I would never do this because of whatever my moral values are at this time, when you get in that situation that maybe a close girlfriend or a close homeboy of yours is in, and those situations start to close in on you in that four-wall representation, then really what are you going to do? You know what I mean? Because you never know, what could be the catalyst of you going out doing something. And of course, we're talking about adultery and stuff like that, but there's other things that are situational in terms of, hey, I wouldn't do it. But when it gets up on you, you may say, okay, well, I tell you what, I'm shaking my head and whatever. That's the way it happens. It's going down, whatever.
Is the book, Why We Sleep with Married Men, the interview, more of a self-help book, or is it a fictional story?
It's a fictional character base. But what I like to do is drop little nuggets within the book. I don't want to come off as preachy when I'm doing a self-help book. But my depiction of self-help books, some of them are, if you do A, B, C, and D, you can come out of this. But it may not. But per the situation, A, B, C, and D might not work for you, or for me. I may need E, F, and G. You know what I mean? But you're telling me A, B, and C, and I'm steady trying to do A, B, C, and D. But E, F, and G is what is applicable to me, because I'm at a different place. If it's nothing else but being in a different place mentally. So what I like to do is write those characters and have those characters talk those situations out and get into the activities of the situations. And then you can better understand what they're going through. And per character, per situation, you may not say A, B, and C. You may go, whoa, okay, now I understand exactly what they're going through, instead of just trying to give you a glimpse of what they're going through. Those characters walk through those situations.
So you've written a play in the past.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you plan on writing the script for any of your books that you've written already? Do you have expectations of putting them on the screen?
Every book that I write, I have expectations of them being on the screen, and that may come off a little different. But as God is putting things in me, I try not to put a limit on what God can do through me. So everything that I write, I see actors. I see Denzel running around in some of my books. I see Morgan Freeman running around in some of my books. And I see myself talking with them. Oh, okay, now Morgan, you said that a little wrong. Say it this way. Nah, Denzel, not quite like that. Do it like you did when you was in Training Day. Pimp like that. So, yeah, absolutely.
And you talk about Denzel, it makes me think of the recent Golden Globe Awards, and Oprah Winfrey was the first Black woman to win the award that she was honored for. And in this instance, it makes me want to talk about equality and the times that we're in now. We're in 2018. In 2018, we should not still have the first Black anything, because we are so talented. So tell me what your thoughts are on that.
My thoughts on that is still at this time, 2018, how many doors are we willing to kick in with our work? What are we willing to display? How bold are we willing to write? Because if we are not, if we're not willing to take our boldness and set it before the world, then guess what? Those doors are not going to be open. So that's just the way I feel like we have a responsibility, as Oprah does so phenomenally. Even with Tyler Perry, those guys are trailblazers in terms of, you know what? I don't need you to open the door because I'm kicking it in. I think those guys they're great role models to me when I'm writing, and not a lot of times being forgiven, having any type of regret about what I write, because the world is non-regretful in regards to how it's manifested. So write what it is and tell the story that God has put inside of you. I think one of her movies that I love is Beloved, the mannerism of African-American men and African-American women, and how they were struggling to get through, and even the things on the backside. And that she went inside the doors and talked about the curses within the family, you know what I mean? And but writing bold like that is what will get us through those doors. And let me be very honest, it's no one's responsibility but ours. I have my children to set the blaze and trailblaze for. So when it's all said and done, what have I done to secure a legacy for my children, for our children, in terms of African-American people? We need to be accountable.
Yeah, I agree. We do need to be accountable. I think that we as a people sometimes hold ourselves back because we don't support each other, which is one of the reasons why I created this platform, because it's not just about what you can do, but it's about what you can do together in a collaborative effort. And I think that it's interesting that you said that you really liked how the adaptation of the book, Beloved, really touched on everything that the author was trying to express, because that is what we as authors want. And I agree with you. Everything I write, I'm thinking about it too. I want it to be on the screen too. I can see my characters as well. So I'm definitely with you on that. I like the way that you're taking an original approach to your writing. So in that, what is it that you want your readers to get from it?
From anything from my writing, whether any book or whatever genre that I'm writing on, because I wouldn't put myself in a box in regards to genre. But I want them to know that per the subject matter, that there is someone that they know that has gone through that. There's someone that they know that they can talk to, whether it's themselves or like I said, someone else, that they can get through this subject matter. This subject matter is just not pulled out of the blue. Yes, Patrick Burton is going to give you some character-based subjects. However, he's going to be talking about some real stuff. So when you read it, you may have to put it down to get the tissue out, to get them tears together, pick it back up, get your breath together. Okay, woo, hey, hey, so-and-so going through something. Now you can get back with it. But I want people to get some real life epiphanies from my books, again, without being titled the self-help, but really talking about some real subject matter, which is why I try to go real strong with my titles. I want my titles to, when you walk in Walmart, if you're walking in Barnes and Nobles, you see that title and you go, whoa, what is that about? You know what I mean? Then you read the back and you see what's going on in the back, and it draws you in, because we're going to talk about some real subject matter.
So what kind of research do you do when you're preparing to write for your book? And how long does it take for you to do the research? How much time do you spend researching before you start your books?
I try to get it. So if we're talking about, of course, Miss Lindsay and Father Figure, and with my upcoming book, Why We Sleep with Married Men, the interview, probably with those three, most of my adult life, right, for research, you know what I mean? But as I start to venture off into doing ghostwriting, which I'm embarking on right now, it's whatever, for me, it's whatever it takes to get the person that you're interviewing comfortable with releasing their story, right? So, because it's not about me at that point. I have to paint the picture so when people start reading it, they can say, okay, wow, this emotion and that emotion is associated with my emotion, because that's what we're looking for. We're looking to grab people's emotions and keep them in the book. So as I'm interviewing with the young lady right now, it's whatever she feels is her complete story from talking to me. I can't rush it, because if she gets into her emotions about telling me her story, and it's definitely a story of detriment, then I have to be sensitive. I can't go, okay, I'm on this deadline. It's not a deadline. Now, once she gives me all the content, of course, as I'm interviewing, I need to be kind of picturing how I'm going to, manage all of the information that she's given me. But there is no timetable when you're developing a story, I think, that could hypothetically heal someone emotionally, mentally, for the interview process. But once you get that, I think as an author, we all have our own internal timetables about how we want to do X amount of words in a timetable.
So why did you start writing?
For me, initially, I started writing as when I was going through my divorce and separation. I was doing it as a healing process. And ironically, I was also going to school and writing papers for school. And I wrote a paper for my my electronics instructor. I went to school for computer electronics, and we had to write a paper and put all the knowledge we had together. Anyway, I was working as well, trying to take care of family. So I had 2 hours to turn it in. I came to work, left work, came to the library, wrote it in 2 hours, and then I turned it in. And 10-page paper is what it was. But anyway, when I turned it in, he was like, wow, this is good, man. Whoa. And I was honest. I was like, dude, seriously, I wrote a page in like paper in 2 hours. And I said, and I didn't give much thought to it. And he was like, you know what, Patrick, honestly, you should think about writing as a career, because this is good. And if you put this down in 2 hours, you obviously have a lot inside that you could write about. And that's when I really took it seriously. That was in 2003. And I was already working on Miss Lindsay, not as a book, but just as a kind of a conversation piece to myself. You know what I mean? If I was working on it in regards to what my ex-wife would be talking to me about if she was being really transparent, a moment of honesty. Here's everything on the table. So I put that around characters and just went with it. And that first book was in 2010.
I was about to ask you, who is Mrs. Lindsay?
Yes, Mrs. Lindsay is, if you look at the book, it's Miss Lindsay with a question mark. So she's Miss Lindsay, she's married, but she does not necessarily want to be married. A lot of women get married for financial reasons. They want to be taken care of, and that's not bad. That's a truth that you can put on the table too as a woman. But in her case, she was married to a man and he was taking care of her well, but she was still in love with her high school sweetheart. Her high school sweetheart didn't necessarily have the finances to do her like her husband was doing her. He wasn't broke, but you can get accustomed to a certain lifestyle. So, but something's going to happen in her life that's going to become the catalyst to deciding whether she wants to be married or does she want to be happily ever after. And again, I know that to be true situations, with a lot of women.
Tell us about your radio show.
Okay. So 95.1 The Beat, which is in Meridian, Mississippi. I have a great friend that we were in the military together.
I'm from Mississippi.
Okay, so you probably can get it, but so bi-weekly. So I did it last Friday, so not this Friday, but next Friday. Every other Friday at 4 o'clock Mississippi time, I go on and I talk about relationships. Last week I spoke about young men and the nonsense of child support. Pay your child support. You took the time to make a child with a young woman, and now all of a sudden you're out of the picture, and she's having to raise a child by herself. And then if you do get summoned on child support, you're mad because you're having to pay for the child, and you're saying that the woman's using your money to go party and so on and so forth. So I do things subject matter like that, and then I let people chime in. Or a lot of times, since I'll be podcasting soon on my webpage, I'll have the conversations on my webpage, and I'll represent some of the things that are being said on the webpage.
Okay. So you use that material as well in your writing?
Absolutely.
I know that you're doing a lot of writing, but I'm sure that you've done a lot of reading as well. Who is your favorite author?
My favorite author is a guy named Herbert Harris. He wrote the 12 Laws of Success. That's more of a self-help book, ironically, because I don't write self-help books, but his is. And I met him one night while I was at the Maserati dealership dreaming about cars. And, and he, like we do, looking in the window like, wow, man, I'm going to get this. All right, God, we're going to get this right here. I put my wife right here, the kids right here, roll the window down a little bit, we rolling. And I was out there looking, and he introduced himself to me, and we had such a beautiful conversation that I was so inspired by such a beautiful older gentleman. The conversation wasn't really about his book, my books. We didn't get to that until the end of it, but we just connected spiritually. We had a good conversation about life. And then he said, hey, man, let me give you this book, and I was like, wow, I write books too. So anyway, we just got into that conversation, and we probably sat out there 2 hours at night talking about books and life. But just a phenomenal guy, and his book is phenomenal. Again, it's the 12 Laws of Success. Probably one of the best books I've ever read in my life. Absolutely.
You mentioned that you go to the Maserati dealership to see your future.
Absolutely.
In 5 years, where do you expect you will be? What are your expectations for you in 5 years?
In 5 years, I definitely feel like in 5 years, one of my books will have made it to big screens in 5 years. I have no doubt that I will be a multimillionaire, knocking on being a billionaire, because I'm kind of aggressive in my plan. Because it's not just about, ooh, I want to be the world's best-selling author, or I want to be the richest man in the world. I want to make sure that my family is locked down in terms of security, in terms of finances, long after I'm gone. So this is a part of that plan. Things have to click. I think that it's important that we don't just sit around and hope. There are action items that have to be achieved, and I'm willing to do those action items. What are you willing to do? I'm at the Maserati dealership dreaming about cars, and I probably could afford one now, but is that the priority? Absolutely not. You know what I mean? Continuing to invest in what's going to give me some type of return is the priority.
I agree with that. I want a G-Wagon.
Okay, yeah, understood. My wife wants one of those. I understand.
Yeah, and I when they first came out, they had in the booklet, they had a little cutout, and you could tear it out and you fold it up, and it looked like a little paper G-Wagon. They used to have it sitting on my bookshelf so that I could look at it, and that's what I want. And throughout the years, what I wanted changed. But I've gone back to that, and I'm like, I want that G-Wagon. I want this. I want that. So I too have a plan. I have everything written out. I have it to the point, I guess I'm aggressive like you. I have it to the point that I know how much I want to make by the hour.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So looking at it, makes you want to continue to strive and makes you want to continue to do more. It gives you that inspiration. Of course, yes, your inspiration lies within your family and you want to make sure that you leave a legacy. But having it written down and being able to look at it and see and cross off everything that you've achieved,
Absolutely.
there's no greater feeling. I'm sure you understand that.
I absolutely do. For Why We Sleep with Married Men, the interview yesterday was it went to the editor. So again, that's one of those cross off things. You know what I mean? You know how it goes. You do your million readovers. Okay, this is good. This is good. This is good. Okay, I have the editor of my choice. She's excited. We're excited. Here's your PayPal. Your money's good. Hey, let's get it going. And you're waiting to get it back. And so, like you said, for me, that daily check off list. What have you done for your brand today? Are you continuously doing something to make sure that you're a success? Are you just sitting around hoping that? Don't get me wrong, I'm a very spiritual guy, but again, faith without works, they're dead. So, a lot of people forget that. They be like, okay, I'm gonna just pray and God, He gonna work it out. He gonna work it out. But you got to put in some activities in order to accommodate the doors that God are opening for you. So that's one of my bigger things is I do not want to disrespect God opening up these doors. And then I go and have a conversation with him. And he'd be like, I kept opening the doors, but you never walked through, or you were never prepared to walk through. So what did you want me to do? You want me to prepare the content and open the doors? I'm holding the door. That's just always in the back of my mind. I just don't want to fail him in that regard. Blessing me with talent and me just sitting on it. It's ridiculous to me.
Now, this is a question that I ask everyone, and that is, what does literary success look like to you?
Literary success to me looks like your books on multiple shelves. Your books are being spoken about on radio shows. Your books are in an area where people are like, hey, I read that father figure healing child abandonment. Hey, because guys talk different. Hey, there's some real stuff in there, brother. You need to check that out. You know what I mean? So-and-so, my main character is Ronnie. Ronnie was going through some stuff, man. Woo! Hey, I'm gonna tell you what, I cried on that thing. And I say that to say this book's been out since 2016. When I sent it to one of my friends in California, not knowing that he was in a situation that my character Ronnie was in. And when he called me from California, he was in tears. I couldn't even understand what he was saying. He was just bawling out. And he was like, man, he said, I'm so glad that you listened to God and allowed him to use you to write this book. You wrote my life story. And then we were in high school together, and I never knew that who we said his father wasn't his father. But anyway, that's kind of the premise of the book. But that's what literary success means to me. When you're touching people with your words, that's what literary success means to me.
Let me ask you one more question. Do you have a branding statement? And if so, what is it?
Embrace the process is what I will always say, because a lot of people can get fixated on the goal and disregard the process. The process can be tedious and it can be grinding, but that's when you're really, really getting developed during that process. So you have to embrace that. And when it's tedious, probably is when you're getting the most development. You know what I mean? When you're dealing with people who are hard to deal with or not on point, you're getting developed, and I take that as God saying, hey, you need this for me to elevate you. So always embrace the process is what I would say.
So we've come to the segment in the show where I ask what's in the honeypot. And what that means is, I know music heavily influences us as a society. So what is on your music playlist that keeps you going? What are you listening to right now?
Transparency is good. I would definitely, OJ is good. If you listen to Jay-Z, OJ is very good because if you listen to the words, he has a phenomenal message in there for us in terms of, hey, let's get it. I'm a big jazz guy, so I listen to jazz. It gets me in my writing zone and old school. I can go pull up Luther right now and I'm cool. You know what I mean? So I'm an old school guy. I'm 47, so I do listen to some rap. I have some kids, but for the most part, I listen to old school music. Like I said, Luther. I like Maxwell. I like vocalists. You know, some of the younger guys I think that have good vocals. I like Trey Songz. He can sing. I can sing. You know what I mean? These guys. Like I said, I like guys who have good vocals. I like Hathaway. I forgot her first name, and that's ridiculous because Layla has a beautiful voice. You know, so something soothing and you can kind of fall back, and it also induces creativity for me.
I love music. I have my little, and you know, I talked about this. I talked about the little artificial intelligence, and then got a gift, the little Google thing as a gift. And so I don't have it set up on anything other than for it to just play music. I don't even think I have it connected to anything, because you can connect it to your stuff on your computer, and it's good just being able to play the music for me right now. I haven't elevated there yet.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it was a pleasure having you today. Do you have any last words?
For your aspiring writers, I think that because a lot of people embark on writing, and someone may tell them that that's not their thing. I would say to them, if God puts something in you, if He puts a story in you, He put it in there for a reason. Tell the world. You write without forgiveness, and you write boldly. And just I don't want to do the Nike slogan, but still just do it. You know what I mean? Just do it. And enjoy and embrace that process, and have fun, and always visualize who God calls you, or what the name He calls you by versus the name that the carnal world calls you by, because it's two different people.
How can everyone find you? Where can they locate you? Give us your social media site.
Absolutely. So on Facebook, it's Patrick Burton -author. On Instagram, it's Burton Author, all one word, www.IamPatrickBurton.com real soon. And it's going to be an array of things concerning me, the radio station and all of that stuff. But you can find me at all those outlets.
Well, we look forward to seeing more from you.
Well, I definitely appreciate you guys having me on. I enjoyed it.
Well, thank you so much for coming. We truly appreciate having you on the show. And we will be looking for all of the great things that you have ahead. Say goodbye to everyone.
Goodbye, folks. Have a blessed day. God bless y'all. Thank you so much.
I want to thank our audience for taking the time to listen to the Honey Pot Podcast today. I'm your host, Carmen Hendricks. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and like us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram using the handle @HoneyPot Podcast. You can also find me at CarmenHendricks.com. That does it for today's podcast. I'm putting the lid back on the pot. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.